Welcome to the Daily Vibecasting. Today, big tech redraws its battle lines. With OpenAI crashing Amazon servers, the AI job market flips the script on doomers, and we ask if fundamental investing is officially dead after an IBM meme stock surge. If you're trying to figure out where the market is moving before it happens, well, you're in the right place.
You really are.
We're doing a deep dive into the raw wire of today's tech, finance, and culture news. I'll be driving us through the headlines, bringing you the high-octane facts and getting into the actual mechanics of what's going on under the hood.
And I'll be sitting right here peeling back the PR spin because, let's be honest, the headline is rarely the real story. My focus is always the second-order effects, like who is actually losing money, who's quietly monopolizing things behind the scenes, and why the market consensus is almost always completely wrong.
Exactly. So let's just jump straight into the deep end, because the lead story on the wire today is this massive tectonic shift in the cloud wars. We've got a post from the official @OpenAI account announcing that their frontier models, so specifically GPT 5.5 and GPT 5.4, plus codecs, they are now generally available on AWS Bedrock.
Which is just a massive deal.
It's huge. I mean, if you aren't in enterprise IT, you might not realize why this is such a big deal. For a Fortune 500 company, just getting a new software vendor approved by compliance can take like 18 months.
Oh, easily. Sometimes longer.
Right. But by putting OpenAI directly into AWS, these enterprise companies can suddenly build with these frontier models using the exact same Amazon security, compliance, and governance workflow that they already pay for.
Yeah.
So it just removes all the friction. It's a massive enterprise play.
It is a massive play, but, let's ask the cynical question here. Why now? And more importantly, why AWS? Because why is OpenAI actively diversifying away from Microsoft Azure, which has been their absolute biggest backer and strategic partner for years?
That's the real question.
Right. This isn't just about making things easier for enterprise compliance. It's a strategic hedge. OpenAI knows they cannot be entirely beholden to Microsoft's infrastructure, and frankly, this is how big tech operates today. They are basically playing geopolitical chess.
100%.
You have to look at the capitalization tables to actually understand how these companies protect themselves. There's this really fascinating post today from @BrewMarkets that highlights exactly this dynamic. They dropped a fun fact pointing out that Alphabet, Google's parent company, quietly owns about 7% of SpaceX.
Wait, 7%?
Yeah, from a 2015 investment.
Yeah.
And they also hold a massive 14% stake in Anthropic.
Right. And BrewMarkets showed this long-term Google chart with over 11,500% cumulative gains. But, how does that play into the strategic hedge argument? Because Google competes directly with Anthropic's Claude models with their own Gemini AI, right? So why fund the enemy?
Well, because these tech behemoths operate like sovereign nation-states now. They are sitting on billions of dollars in unrealized value as strategic hedges. Google doesn't need to control SpaceX to benefit from the privatization of the space economy.
That makes sense.
And more to your point, they don't need operational control of Anthropic to hedge their own Gemini AI bets. They take these massive minority stakes for a very specific reason. It avoids triggering antitrust alarms in Washington, but it still captures the explosive upside. If Anthropic wins the AI war, Google still wins financially.
That is wild. They're essentially building sovereign wealth funds disguised as tech balance sheets.
Exactly.
Which perfectly explains how they retain value. But, when fundamental growth is dead, or at least impossible to project in traditional ways, and stocks trade on viral memes, how do massive companies actually prove their value to shareholders?
We really can't.
Right. I ask because we have to talk about how completely irrational the actual stock market has become today. We have a viral post from @Lit Capital. It's this meme showing someone literally throwing Benjamin Graham's classic book, The Intelligent Investor, straight into a dumpster.
I saw that. Just brutal.
And it's trending because IBM stock just surged between 7 and 15% in pre-market. And why? Simply because a clip from December 2025 of Donald Trump praising IBM CEO Arvind Krishna just resurfaced on social media.
Yep.
And look, I need to pause here and say, regardless of where you sit on the political spectrum or, what you think of the video itself, we are purely looking at the market mechanics here to understand why this happened. We are impartially reporting the market's financial reaction to this clip, not endorsing the viewpoints in it, just conveying the data from the source.
Absolutely.
But the fact that a year-old political soundbite can move a legacy, century-old tech stock by double digits, it tells us the market isn't trading on fundamentals anymore. It's trading on pure attention.
It's telling us that the efficient market hypothesis is just completely dead. I mean, if you went to business school, you learned about discounted cash flows, PE ratios, fundamental valuation, all of that.
Right, the classics.
You were taught that a stock's price reflects all known information about a company's intrinsic value. But when a viral video from last year can move a blue chip stock by 15% before humans have even had their morning coffee, classic valuation principles are just irrelevant.
So what's actually driving it?
What's actually happening under the hood is algorithmic sentiment trading. These high-frequency trading bots, they just scrape social media 24/7. They use natural language processing to identify positive sentiment tied to a major political figure. They map those keywords to the ticker symbol IBM, and they execute millions of dollars in buys in milliseconds.
Wow.
The algorithms do not care about IBM's quarterly earnings. They only care about the velocity of the trend.
It's the absolute memification of blue chips. So if legacy tech companies are being traded like meme coins, what are the consumer-facing tech companies doing to prove their dominance?
That's the real battleground.
Yeah, and they either build impenetrable walls around their users like Apple is doing,
Yeah.
or they literally flee the country, like Robinhood. Let's look at what's happening on your phone right now. Mark Gurman at March Gurman is reporting that Apple's upcoming iOS 27 and watchOS 27 are going to include a service in Apple Wallet that lets you seamlessly split bills.
Oh, this is huge.
You literally just take a photo of a restaurant receipt, the OS parses the items, you tap the faces of your friends to assign the burgers and drinks, and it just sends the request via Apple Cash.
Which is an absolute nightmare for companies like Venmo and Splitwise. Because think about the friction of consumer finance. Every time you make a user open a third-party app, authenticate, and manually type in amounts, you risk losing them.
Right, nobody wants to do that.
Exactly. Apple isn't competing here. They're monopolizing by default. If you bake the functionality directly into the operating system level, you just starve the third-party apps of oxygen. Granted, Gurman's thread notes this will likely be U.S. only at first, tied to the U.S. banking system and Apple Cash, but it's a classic walled garden execution.
Yeah, they're locking the consumer in so tightly that leaving the iPhone ecosystem means, like, losing the ability to interact financially with your friends.
Precisely.
Meanwhile, as Apple locks down the U.S. consumer, Robinhood is looking for the exit. Vlad Tenev at Vlatnev just announced that Robinhood has officially closed a $250 million Canadian acquisition of WonderFi, which operates crypto platforms like BitBuy and CoinSquare. So Robinhood is officially live in Canada, adding to their 1 million international customers.
Because they literally have no choice. The U.S. retail market is entirely saturated, and the regulatory environment for crypto is an absolute minefield with the SEC right now.
Is a mess.
Right. So Robinhood buying a foreign crypto footprint isn't just a fun story about international expansion. It's about regulatory flight. They are fleeing an over-regulated domestic market. Instead of fighting these uphill legal battles in the U.S., they are using their capital to buy a compliant, pre-approved customer base across the border. Organic growth in the U.S. has hit a wall, so they have to buy their way into friendlier jurisdictions.
Okay, so big tech is moving billions into sovereign stakes. Algorithms are trading legacy stocks on pure vibes, and consumer finance is shifting across borders. But all of this capital movement really begs the question, what are these companies actually building with all this money?
That is the trillion-dollar question.
Right, and the data from our sources today points to a massive fundamental shift. We are fully entering the era of the agentic workflow, which is basically, a polite way of saying the complete abstraction of human labor.
That is the core narrative right now. The human is being removed from the loop.
Exactly. So let's look at how this is reshaping the job market. We have a post from AI pioneer Andrew Ng at Andrew Ng. He points out that the buzziest, highest-paying new job in Silicon Valley isn't a traditional software engineer anymore. It's the FDE, the forward deployed engineer.
Oh, yeah, the Palantir model.
Yep, it's a title originally popularized by Palantir. It's an engineer who embeds deep inside a client's company to customize and tune complex agentic AI workflows. And this pairs perfectly with a thread from Greg Eisenberg, Ed Gregesenberg, who listed 14 flipped narratives in AI over the last year. He points out that GPT wrappers, which everyone completely mocked a year ago as flimsy businesses, now hold all the application layer value.
Absolutely.
And prompt engineering, completely dead. It's been replaced by workflow engineering.
Which brings us to the ultimate cynicism of the whole AI will eliminate white-collar jobs narrative. We were told by every tech pundit that AI would just replace everyone and we'd all be on universal basic income.
Right, the whole doomer scenario.
But instead, what do we actually have? We have FDEs. We didn't eliminate the jobs, we just created a new, hyper-expensive class of AI middle
With
managers.
meal managers.
Yeah, think about it. An FDE is essentially just glorified vendor-neutral IT support. Companies are paying a massive premium for a human to sit inside their organization and babysit hallucinating language models because the models can't actually be trusted to run independently yet.
Okay, I hear you on the middle manager angle, but I have to push back hard on the idea that they are just babysitters or glorified IT. Aren't FDEs fundamentally different?
How so?
Well, an IT guy resets your router or fixes a server configuration. An FDE is practically a digital neurosurgeon wiring up a company's custom brain. They're orchestrating multiple competing AI models to execute highly complex, multi-step reasoning tasks. That's not babysitting. That is genuine high-level orchestration.
Fair, but it's still hand-holding the AI.
But to prove just how complex these systems are getting, look at the demo posted today by Bindu Reddy at Bendurity from Abacus AI. She showed off an agent swarm. This is not your standard ChatGPT window.
Not at all.
No, it's a localized supercomputer setup where a master AI agent takes a plain English prompt and then delegates the work to specialized sub-agents using a mix of the best models available. So, Opus 4.8, Gemini 3.5, and GPT 5.5. In the demo, the swarm builds a complete, production-ready HR SaaS application.
Wow.
We're talking a Next.js front-end web app, a Node.js back-end server, a fully functional mobile app, and complex database integrations. It spun all of that up from plain English instructions without a human writing a single line of code.
Yeah, well, the demos always look flawless on X. But what's fascinating and frankly terrifying is the hidden cost of that orchestration. Let's talk about the reality of an agent swarm in production.
Okay, let's hear it.
Look at the post today from @ClaudeDevs, the official Anthropic developer account. They literally had to issue a massive reset of the 5-hour and weekly rate limits for all their Pro and Max users today.
Wait, really?
Yes. Why? Because a bug in their Claude code caused user sessions to spawn excessive recursive parallel subagents that burn through user quotas instantly. Let's put this in perspective with a metaphor. Imagine you hire a general contractor to fix a leaky pipe in your house. But he gets a little confused by the instructions, so he subcontracts the job to 10 plumbers.
Okay.
Those plumbers hit a snag, so they each hire 10 more plumbers. Within 3 seconds, you have 10,000 plumbers crammed into your kitchen. They are all billing you by the hour, and the pipe is still leaking. That is exactly what happens when recursive AI loops go wrong.
That is insane. And if you are a founder listening to this deep dive right now, and you are rushing to integrate agentic workflows because you think it's going to save you massive amounts of money on payroll, you really need to understand something critical. Your payroll risk hasn't disappeared. It has just migrated to your AWS bill.
100%.
And human employees might complain, but AWS doesn't give you a warning before they charge your corporate card for 10,000 rogue subagents. You literally wake up on Monday and your cloud bill is 6 figures because of a typo in your master agent's prompt.
Exactly. The abstraction layer is getting thicker, and as it gets thicker, it gets more dangerous to the bottom line if you don't understand the mechanisms underneath.
But despite the massive financial risks of these recursive loops, the momentum toward completely removing the human from the process is just accelerating everywhere. It's happening in digital code, and it's spilling over into physical reality. Let's look at front-end development. At the ZSLEO, posted a screenshot of Instagram's actual production HTML.
This was wild to see.
Right. Now, developers argue constantly on social media about the best way to write code, like writing plain CSS versus using modular tools like Tailwind. But Instagram's HTML is just a massive, unreadable wall of obfuscated, hashed class names. It's generated entirely by Meta's internal StyleX library. Humans aren't writing and can't even read this production code anymore. The machine writes it for the browser.
It's pure machine-to-machine communication at this point.
And then Beto Modano, at Beto Modano, posted 2 identical mobile app screens. One was hand-built with Apple's native Swift UI language. The other was built with Expo UI for React Native. You literally cannot tell the visual difference.
Not at all.
The mechanism here is what matters. Developers used to have to hand-carve every single button and menu using native code for iOS and then do it all over again for Android. Now Expo UI acts as a universal translator. You write it once, and the machine perfectly translates it to native iOS code. Developers don't need to learn Apple's specific languages anymore.
Which brings us to the most extreme example of human abstraction physical movement in the real world. If we don't trust humans to write the CSS for a web page, or the Swift code for an app menu, we definitely don't want them holding a steering wheel at 75 miles an hour.
Definitely not.
Tesla posted today, claiming their FSD supervised software is the only system completing coast-to-coast drives without any human input whatsoever. They are citing power users like David Moss, who just completed a 2,700-mile cross-country U.S. trip and a 3,700-mile Canada trip on software version 14 with 0 disengagement.
Like 0 disengagements, like not even navigating complex parking lots or supercharger stations?
Not the superchargers. The neural nets are handling the complete end-to-end routing and physical execution. And this is the through line for everything we are talking about today. Whether it's the machine translation rendering an app UI, the agent swarm architecting a database, or the neural net driving a 2-ton vehicle through a blizzard on the highway, the market consensus is crystal clear.
Which is?
The human element is fundamentally becoming a liability, not an asset. The machines are simply more reliable, more scalable, and less prone to emotional error, well, at least until they hit an edge case they haven't been trained on.
Right, the dreaded edge cases. So this brings us to a really profound, almost societal question. If the agent swarms are writing and maintaining our software, and the neural nets are driving our cars coast to coast, and the algorithmic bots are managing our stock portfolios, what are the humans actually left to do with their time?
Just yap.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The data from our culture and society sources today gives us a pretty stark answer. We're just going to stare at screens and yap at each other.
It is the ultimate return to the Roman Colosseum. Bred in circuses, but digitally delivered.
Truly. The entertainment wire is absolutely lighting up with record consumption numbers. At Polymarket flagged that AMC theaters just hit a massive 7-year attendance high, over 25.5 million guests in May alone.
That's a massive number.
It is. But here's the interesting part. It wasn't just traditional Hollywood blockbusters like the Michael Jackson biopic driving the foot traffic. It was heavily boosted by low-budget indie internet IP like A24's horror film Backrooms. And for the living room, YouTube just announced they secured the rights to stream the entire 48-nation FIFA World Cup 2026 live on FOX One. And for the hardcore gamers, PlayStation is launching the FlexStrike wireless fight stick for $200 and a new ultra-competitive 240Hz monitor in August. We are consuming high-bandwidth content at an unprecedented scale.
We are consuming at an unprecedented scale, but we have to look at the nature of the content being consumed because I deeply question the societal sustainability of this culture. Think about the AMC data you just mentioned.
Yeah.
Their saving grace wasn't a $200 million Marvel movie. It was an A24 film directed by a 17-year-old YouTuber who got famous making spooky videos in his bedroom.
That's true.
The barrier between internet creator culture and traditional prestige media has just completely collapsed, and social media platforms are accelerating this fragmentation of our attention span. Look at what X just rolled out. They launched a new feature on iOS called React with Video.
Oh, I saw that.
You don't just reply to a thread with a text argument anymore. You tap a button, and it overlays a green screen video of your physical face reacting to the post. Their own official account, cheekily called the feature Yap City.
Yeah, moving from Yapacity to full-blown Yap City.
But why does that specific feature matter so much in the grand scheme of things?
Because it marks the final pivot from text-based intellectual debate to performative visual chaos. Text requires you to formulate a thought, structure an argument, and actually engage with the substance of what someone is saying.
Right.
Reacting with a green screen video of yourself rolling your eyes or shouting is purely performative. We are optimizing our entire culture for raw, visceral, visual engagement because it's literally the only thing that can successfully hijack a human's dopamine receptors in a world where bandwidth is virtually infinite. That is a brilliant point, and it perfectly sets up our final deep dive segment for today. We've talked about AI scaling infinitely, but we need to talk about the limits of the humans consuming all this content. We have a deeply philosophical post from Paul Graham at Paul Graham. He posted an analysis of a set of survival curves for England and Wales that tracks human lifespans over 160 years.
This is an incredibly revealing data set. It really forces us to confront our own biological reality.
It really does. Because if you look at the curves from 1851 all the way to 2011, the shape of the graph bulges out over time in the middle. Demographers call it the inflating sail effect.
Right.
Through vaccines, antibiotics, and better sanitation, we've done an incredible job at entirely eliminating early life mortality, and we've massively reduced midlife mortality. The sail is full of wind.
But there's a catch.
But here's where it gets really interesting, and where the how and why matter. The far right tail of that curve,
Hmm.
the absolute upper limit of people living to be 100 or 110 years old, has barely moved an inch in over a century and a half. We have pushed the average up, but the maximum is completely static. Graham was asking his audience if simulation experts could use complex physics models to predict the future shape of this longevity curve, treating human biology almost like a material science problem.
And this right here is the ultimate cynical reality check for everyone listening today. Why hasn't human life expectancy pushed past that 110-year mark? Because modern medicine is fundamentally just solving for cellular wear and tear. We
Yeah.
can replace a heart, we can cure an infection, we can cut out a tumor, but we cannot stop foundational genetic degradation. We hit the Hayflick limit, the absolute number of times a human cell can divide before it's simply starved.
It just hits a wall.
Exactly. We spend our days on this show analyzing OpenAI deploying frontier AI models on AWS. We watch Tesla neural nets drive 2-ton machines 3,000 miles through the snow without a human touching the wheel. We stream the World Cup to billions of mobile devices simultaneously in 4K. But despite all of that infinite technological scaling, we still haven't hacked the fundamental biological physics of human aging.
No, I haven't.
Capital and technology can solve the routing of information, but eventually they hit a biological brick wall. We have a hard limit.
We have a hard limit.
Yep.
But what about the things we are building? That leaves me with a final, somewhat provocative thought for you to chew on as we wrap up today's deep dive.
Well, I'm ready.
If human lifespans have a strict, unbreakable biological wall at 110 years, but these AI agent swarms we are deploying today don't have telomeres and they don't age at all, will the automated systems we spin up today eventually outlive us? Could we see a future where your personal, highly tuned agent swarm is still managing your digital estate, paying your AWS bills, and executing your stock trades decades after you have hit that biological wall and passed away?
It's entirely possible. But given the absolute chaos we've analyzed today, my prediction for tomorrow is far less philosophical and much more immediate.
Let's hear it.
Between the algorithmic meme surge of century-old legacy stocks like IBM and the fact that recursive AI subagents are already burning through corporate cloud quotas completely unmonitored tomorrow, we will wake up to see an algorithmic trading bot accidentally drain a multi-billion-dollar hedge fund's capital because it hallucinated a trading signal from a random green screen video reaction of someone yapping on X.
The ultimate disastrous collision of Yap City and automated finance. That is going to be a fun notification to wake up to. Well, that is all the time we have for today's deep dive into the wire. Keep a very close eye on your cloud bills, watch out for the recursive agents, and we will see you next time.